Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about difficult children. I'm Rita and today it's all about you. We all have an idea that babies are the ones that are really easy. They sleep, eat and need the diaper change from time to time. And usually they cry when they need one of these things fulfilled. But unfortunately this is not always like this. There are babies that cry part of the day for months. Because usually they are easily frustrated, they are ultra sensitive, they are emotional, intense, and they usually have difficulty to cope with change. And these doctors usually call them the high-need babies or the intense babies. They cry much more because they can't bear to be without the mother or the attention of the mother for a long period of time. They have very small sleep cycles and they are really demanding, particularly with their mothers. They easily drain their energy and easily a mother of a high-need baby can enter in collapse, a burnout or a deep depression. But this doesn't mean that this child had born bad or evil or whatever people want to call them. It is actually very common and it is normal that there are children that are like this in the first months. And this doesn't mean that these parents are spoiling somehow these children. These children, they really born with high needs. They are extra sensitive, but this will melt and everything will be much more normal and much less demanding during toddler years. So this is when these babies are starting to behave a little bit different and they are much more calmer and less stressed about their mothers or their caregivers. But what happens when these babies doesn't have their needs fulfilled? Well, when this happens, they will grow with a lack of frustration resistance, and with the growth and the development, this will transform into a much more aggressive behavior during toddler times, and with an emotional intensity that will mark and develop very strong negative feelings in the family relationship. So what I mean to bring you this example of high-need children is that there are not children that born as bad, as evil, or even as much more difficult like the other ones. They are just different children, and every child and every baby is different from the other, and the studies conclude that these high-need babies, they all exist all the time and they always were a reality, and this is nothing that the parents had done bad or wrongly. This is just something that happens. A child doesn't really born in totally has a blank paper. She is already born with some characteristics and some personality traits, of course, from the genetic, but there are the reason and the certainty that these children will have just a normal development and they will be just like the other children when they reach toddler years. Researchers believe that these type of children, they can eventually have a chemical imbalance on the brain when they are born that didn't really develop as it should, and that's why they need such a higher demand from their mothers or from their caregivers. But this is just one of the explanations after years of studies that researchers can conclude. What is important here to notice is that a loving, positive reinforcement education that can involve the whole family members, particularly the ones that are living with this child in an everyday situation, will help the child to develop all the chemical connections and balance on the brain that she needs to shape the correct behavior that includes a higher social skill development and a more resistant resilience. There are also other studies with much older children, for instance children between 7 and 12 years old, that prove that the stress hormone can produce and limit a certain child behavior. There are also a genetic incidence on violent behavior that can grow along with the environment influence in a much more negative way. These children may be eventually less sensitive to stress and maybe be less concerned about the consequences of a bad behavior. So what I mean is that even we know that are lots of children with really bad behavior that can be dangerous for themselves and eventually for others, we can't really embrace the idea that a child can eventually born bad or evil. We all have the moral obligation to dig deeper and to eventually try to understand the roots of that behavior. And of course, we can conclude that the reason for this behavior, for this bad behavior, can be eventually a genetic predisposition and an environment influence. The way a chemical brain connects will determine the behavior of a child, and the social stimuli will turn these behaviors into reality. And for this I mean the family dynamic, the parent education, the social connections, and all the relationships that surround this child. I personally believe that positive parenting results in a very smart child, totally trustable and kind to everyone. And this can be proved if we have the opportunity to study this children's brain, understanding that their brain structure and their chemical connections are much more faster and much more effective. I also believe that any positive interaction between the child and the parents should really be structured, because this will help to limit negative behaviors and eventually thoughts, giving the child the right limits and the opportunity to express feelings, be respect, be empathic. And this can, with time and practice, can fight a certain kind of chemical imbalance that eventually a child may be born with. So in the end, what I mean is that I truly believe that even with a difficult child and even with some structures, problems or issues that a child may have on the brain, like these types of chemical imbalance, it is possible with the right kind of education and the right kind of parenting to just limit the negative interactions or behaviors and just help a child develop in a much healthy way and with positive behaviors and interactions between the child and the whole family. And so that's all for today, guys. I hope you like it. I hope you subscribe to the channel, leave a thumbs up, share with a friend, comment if you want, and I'll see you next time for another video. Bye!